1 in 4. That's the number of women that are going to face domestic violence. 1 in 6. That is the number of women who face attempted or completed rape in their lives. That number goes to 1 in 4 when you talk about on college campuses. Not necessarily this college campus, but in general college campuses. 1 in 6 women are going to be a victim of stalking in their lives. Are these women's issues? Are women the only ones that deal with this? Do you think? No. Are men the only ones that deal with this? No. It's not one particular person's or gender's issues over another. But when we talk about domestic violence, dating violence, excuse me, I have allergy problems, a sexual assault, stalking, predominantly the victims are going to be women, and that is what is reported. Now, men are victims of these things too. Men don't report it as often, but they are victims of it as well. When we talk about dating violence, domestic violence, those are pretty much the same things. The behaviors are very similar. It's just who the victim is that's different. I go around to different places, and I'll tell you a little bit about, I'm from SAFE Incorporated. We're a domestic violence shelter and sexual assault crisis center that covers this area. And I go around and I speak about sexual assault, I talk about bullying, I talk about dating violence, domestic violence, all these different types of things. When it comes down to bullying, dating violence, domestic violence, the behaviors are all very similar. It's who the victim is that changes the definition. You know, somebody may start out bullying their classmates, and then that transfers over into their dating life and then into their domestic life. So these behaviors can start really early. This is not something that clicks on when someone becomes an adult. This is not I turned 18 and this is what I'm going to do now. It's also not something that somebody's born to do. No one's born to be an abuser. These are learned behaviors. Domestic violence, dating violence, that's a cycle. It happens, it cycles through the generations. Children see their parents or the people in their family go through these behaviors, and they start emulating those behaviors, whether that be they start acting as a victim or they start acting as an abuser. So, you know, this is a learned behavior, and what we're trying to do is we're trying to stop that cycle. We're trying to let people know that these behaviors are not okay. It's not okay to think to accept being a victim. It's not okay to be an abuser. And so what we're trying to do is try to stop that cycle so that we don't have this continue through the generations. Domestic and dating violence kind of shows itself in a cycle within itself. And I don't have, sometimes I use a picture of that, but the way that the longest phase is usually what we call the walking on eggshells phase, which is there's tension building. You're trying not to make the other person mad. You're not, you know when you're like your mom's in a bad mood and you're trying just not to make her go off on you. You clean your room and you're really quiet and you do your homework and you wash your dishes and you just, you know what I'm talking about? That type of situation, but with your dating partner. You are trying not to make that other person mad, to go off on you. After that, there's an explosive phase. There's something that happens, whether that be physically battering event, whether that be emotional, verbal, anything like that. After that is the honeymoon phase. That cycle continues and continues. After that honeymoon phase, that's the, I'm sorry, I promise I'll never do it again. I love you. You're the only one for me. Please be with me. Then that tension starts to build again. And so that cycle continues and continues. Is domestic violence, dating violence, is it physical always? Is that all it is? No. There are emotionally abusive behaviors. There are verbally abusive behaviors. There are sexually abusive behaviors. You know, somebody can tell you you're worthless every day, and that can hurt you just as much as if somebody punched you in the face every day. Could it not? So that can break you down just as much as somebody doing something physically to you. And a lot of times I talk about warning signs of an unhealthy relationship. Things like jealousy, things like isolation, things like being very controlling, wanting to know who you're with, where you're going, who you're talking to, who'd you eat lunch with, why are you wearing that, you know, why are you doing this activity? All of these different kinds of things, wanting to control everything. An abuser wants you to be completely dependent on them. An abuser wants you to not have anybody to go to. They don't want you to have friends. They don't want you to have family because they are trying to get you to feel like they're the only person for you. Where are you going to go? Nobody cares about you. If you leave me, who's going to want you? Nobody loves you but me. And so that's what they're going to want you to start to feel. A lot of times when it comes to an abuser, they don't have very good self-esteem. And they start trying to break down your self-esteem. They start trying to make you feel bad about yourself, so you start to think, maybe this is what I deserve. Maybe this is the only person for me. So they'll start trying to make you feel just as bad as they feel about themselves. An abuser does things to make you feel like all it is it matters about, only the person that matters is them. An abuser doesn't care about you. They care about themselves. So, I hate when people walk in front of the projector, so I'm not going to do it. But they try to make everything about themselves. So this is a girl kind of talking about how she sort of accepted. This is how this cycle continues.
Women, no matter if you have strong women in your house or not, that you learn somehow, in some way, that your significant other's problems are more important than your own. And that if he has a problem, or she has a problem, and it starts seeping into you, or they start lashing out at you as a result of their problems, that's okay, because you love them, and you're supposed to be there for them, and loving somebody is being close to them and going through those bad times with them. And that's when it got really tricky for me, because the worse he felt about himself, absolutely, the worse he would treat me. There was a direct correlation between the worse he felt about himself and the more he would abuse me. And it was so gradual that I couldn't even see it coming. And it was only to the point when I was 17 where he really was doing things that were so outlandish that I had to say to myself, wait a minute, nobody would do this to me. This is crazy. That I began to see that I was really in a bad situation. But even then, I would say, I remember one time specifically, I said, you can't do this to me. You know, you did this to me and this is wrong. Nobody does this to anyone else. And he said, I'm sorry. And I said, okay.
So in a relationship, a lot of times that's what it's like. That the worse that person feels about themselves, the worser, it's not a word, the worse they feel about themselves, the more they're going to treat you badly. Because they want you to feel their pain because their pain is the only one that matters. Your pain doesn't matter. It's their pain that matters. And so they're going to continue to treat you in this way. And that's what, she said she just, it sneaks up on you. She didn't even realize until it was outlandish, where it was like, why am I with somebody that's doing this? And she said, stop it. And he said, I'm sorry. And she was like, okay. I mean, she got used to that behavior. And that's where that, sometimes you get so far into a relationship where these things start happening, and it's been happening over time and you don't realize it. And it sneaks up on you, and at that point you love that person. You want to be with that person. This is the person for you. And it's hard to separate those feelings from what's happening in a situation like that. It's hard to think, oh, I love this person, but they're treating me in a way that doesn't show that they care anything about me. So you have to be able to stop that. People stay in relationships like this for a lot of different reasons. And people ask me all the time, why did Ray Rice's fiance, wife, whoever, stay with him after all that? There's a lot of different reasons. There are people who they stay because of economic reasons. They don't want to go out and get a job for themselves. This person has made them completely financially dependent on them. So they don't want to go and find a job and have to support themselves. They've never done it before. They've never been allowed to do it before. They don't know how to do it. And it scares them. It scares them to the unknown, whatever is outside that door. They're used to this situation. They know how to survive in this situation. And so they're going to stay in it. There are people who tell me that I'd rather have my child have some father than no father. They stay in these situations because there's somebody there that keeps a roof over their head. They stay in these situations because somebody says, I'll kill you if you leave. Or I'll kill your mom if you leave. I'll take those children away from you. I'll call DHS if you leave, and they'll take those kids. So there's a lot of different reasons why people stay. Sometimes people get addicted to drugs and alcohol in situations that they share those addictions. And not only are they having to break away from this relationship, they're having to break away from that addiction, and they can't do that. They're not strong enough. They don't feel like they're strong enough. And what we do at SAVE, we're a shelter and 24-hour crisis line and counseling and case management to help people realize that you can be independent. You can do these things on your own. You don't have to stay in a situation where somebody treats you like this. You can come to us, we can help you, and you can do these things to support yourself. Now, as far as, we talk about dating violence, domestic violence, as far as other violence against women, things like sexual assault. Like I said, one in 6 women is going to be a victim of attempted or completed rape in their lifetime. Most of the time, that's going to happen about 35–40% of the time. It's before the age of 17 when it comes to women. Most of the time, it's going to be before the age of 24. How many of y'all in here are under the age of 24? Not me, but make sure I don't come anywhere close to raising my hand. But think about that statistically. Again, I'm not saying that's this campus. I'm not saying this county. But statistically, that's the way it works out. Most of the time, when we talk about sexual assault, sexual assault's not about sex. It's not like, you're so hot, I gotta have you right now. That's not what it's about. It's about power and control. But instead of knocking somebody around or trying to manipulate them, they're going to use sex as a way to exert power and control over them. And I'd say at least 80% of sexual assault cases are perpetrated by somebody the victim knows. Maybe a family member, maybe an acquaintance. Most of the time, it's not somebody that's in an intimate relationship with them. It's not boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, those kind of things. Most of the time, that's not the case. But, and this is national statistics. I'm sure that you probably have more specific statistics for, because I know in a program we did before where I think at Wama County it was 90 or 95% of the sexual assaults were perpetrated by somebody that the victim knew. But about 80 to 85% of sexual assaults are never reported. You know, these statistics, it's hard to get real statistics because people don't want to report those things. Why do you think that is?
Shame.
Shame. Could be shame. A lot of times people will go, when they talk about, think about people when they talk about rape prevention, what do they tell you to do? They're telling you not to do stuff, right? Don't dress like that. Don't drink that. Don't go there. It's never anyone's fault for being sexually assaulted. And a lot of times when you report it, they say, what'd you do wrong? Well, what did you do to make them think that? And they don't want to hear that. That's re-victimization. That's that shame, and they don't want to be put under that. And so a lot of times they close that up and they try to deal with it themselves because they don't want somebody to go, well, what did you do wrong? I don't know. I'm about to ask a dumb question. How many of y'all are on Instagram? I am on Instagram. They had an interesting spin on it, and it was actually fairly controversial. I saw an article today. Sarah Silverman, are y'all aware of who she is, comedian? She posted something over the weekend that was 10 rape prevention tips. And a lot of times you see rape prevention tips. Don't drink too much. Don't go to parties with people you don't know. And it was like, don't rape people, you know. It's like carry a rape whistle. And if you feel like you're going to rape somebody, blow the whistle until someone stops you. You know? Because, and that's normally not the focus. You know, that's not the focus of it. They focus on the victim instead of focusing on who is perpetrating these crimes. And so that's what, you know, we kind of need to shift that because, you know, that's when the focus is on the victim and it's all about what did the victim do that caused this to happen, then you're not going to get people reporting this because they don't want to have to go through that. One of the things they've started talking about now, how many of y'all ever heard of no means no? No means no. Okay, if I'm passed out on this floor, can I tell you no? Probably not. Well, I hope not. Now they're starting to say yes means yes. In other words, you have to get a clear yes before you do anything to get that go ahead. And I say this too, and I talk to different people about it and say, like, look, if you want to do this, if you want to do something with someone, the absence of saying no does not mean it's okay. You have to say it's okay for this to happen. And if you're in a situation where the person has not said yes, you may want to pull it back a little bit just so, somebody may be really uncomfortable saying no to you. Maybe you're super hot and you're like popular on campus and they're showing you attention and it's just like awesome. And, you could be intimidated in those situations. But that's what we start talking about. Yes means yes versus no means no. Getting a clear yes before things like that happen. Okay. I feel like my brain is going on a certain train of thought, and I had something earlier and I forgot it. I'll circle back around to it. Another thing that I like to talk about when it comes to violence, when it comes to being a victim of violence, setting healthy boundaries. A lot of times, when you have been a victim of violence, you don't set boundaries, you set walls. This happened to me one time, and good luck. Good luck getting anywhere near me again. I'm not going to let anybody in here. That's not a healthy boundary. A healthy boundary is also not saying yes to everything. How many of y'all feel guilty saying, now I'm not talking about like sex and things like that, but just in general, people asking you to do things, people asking you to go places with them, people asking you to cover their shift, people asking you to help them with their homework or study with them. How many of y'all feel guilty sometimes saying no to people? You feel like, oh, I'm a good student, I'm a good person, I want to help, and so I'm going to say yes to everything. And how many of you get overwhelmed by those things? I know I do. When I'm trying to fit everything into my schedule, it's not easy. But you have to set those healthy boundaries for yourself where a boundary is a physical or an emotional space, a line, that you expect other people to respect in a relationship with you. And I don't necessarily mean a dating relationship, friendship, any kind of relationship, family relationship, where you expect them to respect that and that's the line that you need to set so that you can be yourself. And that you can get the things that make you feel comfortable and make you feel healthy. People just keep joining us. And your boundary is probably going to be different than my boundary. And I'm not saying that's because, I know more than you or anything like that. There are different things. We're all different. Something that makes me uncomfortable may not make you uncomfortable. Something that doesn't make me uncomfortable, you may be like, what? So, everybody has their own lines. They have their own boundaries. But you have to think that there's a difference between saying yes to everything, having a really open boundary. People who want to get intimate really quickly, they want to share everything with you. They want to tell, how many of y'all know somebody that tells you all their business? Or they put all their business on Facebook or wherever. They don't have that boundary, that privacy boundary. Somebody who does things for other people instead of themselves. They do things to make other people happy. They're not worried about how they feel. They're worried about how everybody else feels. A healthy boundary is something that makes you feel good, that makes you feel healthy. And so you have to think about a healthy boundary is going to keep the bad stuff out and let the good stuff in. You can't set up a wall because that'll keep the bad stuff out, but it keeps the good stuff out too, right? So you've got to think about setting those boundaries. And once you figure out what your boundaries are, and you have to do that, you have to separate yourself from people that you're in a relationship with. A lot of times when you're in a relationship with someone, you start to kind of join together, you become one. Like this is this half and this is this half, and we're a heart, and it's so cute. and we love each other. You have to separate yourself out from that. You're a separate person from the person you're with. You're a separate person from your friend. You're a separate person from everybody else. So you have to take a step back and figure out, what do I want? How do I feel? How do I feel about this situation? What makes me happy? And you have to figure those things out and figure out how somebody might be crossing those boundaries and what you can do to not let that happen again. To stand up for yourself and say, look, no, I'm not comfortable with this. This has got to stop. Maybe somebody that, this is kind of sounds like a trivial thing, but somebody that always borrows money from you and never pays you back. Has anybody got a friend like that? Don't point at anybody. I was just, we can just get all up here and go Jerry Springer and air it out if we really want to. But, you know, that makes you uncomfortable. What can you do to stop that? Somebody that calls and texts you all hours of the night. You're trying to study. You're trying to sleep. They want to talk to you, whether that be a boyfriend, girlfriend, friend, whoever. They want to talk to you all the time when it's not convenient for you. What can you do to make that stop happening? Turn your phone off. Talk to them. Say, look, after 10 o'clock, you just out of luck. I'm going to sleep. Whatever that might be. But setting those boundaries, and a lot of times when you set a boundary with somebody, you're going to get pushback because they've been doing all this stuff that they want to do. They enjoy doing these. They enjoy taking advantage of the fact that you will answer whenever they text. Whatever it is, you're going to get pushback. They may be angry with you. That is showing they're still not respecting that boundary. They're not respecting you. They're worried about what they want. They're not worried about what you want. If you tell them, this is how I feel, and they're like, I don't care, what about me? They're not respecting you. They're not respecting your boundaries. So you have to do that. You have to set those boundaries so that you can feel healthy in relationships. Does anybody know what an active bystander is? Yes. Do you know what an active bystander is? You did this. Were you just waving? Hey. Do what? A person. A person. An active bystander is a person who...
Somebody who sees something going on and steps in.
Right. So somebody who is standing by and they see something happen and they do something about it. Does that mean they run in there and go, stop, 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 stop? Is that the only way to handle a situation? No. I just finished some training with a group, a program called Green Dot. And what they talk about is they have the 3 Ds. The first one is direct. That is going in and saying, stop, 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 stop. You know, what's going on? Are you okay? Those kind of things. That's one way to handle a situation. I'm going to step off of this and fall in a second. You just watch because I'm trying not to step close to it. To step into it and to say something. To address the situation. The second one is delegate. That means call somebody. Call somebody that can handle the situation better than you can. When we talk about being an active bystander, we don't mean putting yourself in danger. If it's not a safe situation, you don't need to put yourself in that. But maybe there's somebody that you can call who can handle that situation better. Maybe you can call campus police. They can handle that situation better than you can. So that's delegating. That's putting that to somebody that can handle that situation in a safe manner. The third one is... I should know that. Distract. I got distracted while I was trying to say it. Distract is addressing, going into that situation, but it's not addressing the situation. So you can go up to somebody that's, maybe there's an argument going on, and you go up to them and you go, hey, did you do your math homework last night? Or, oh, you look like my cousin. Just doing something to distract that situation. You being there can make a difference. You just being in that situation can make a difference. The picture I have when I talk about this, when I have the overhead, is a dog who has got its face smushed up against the window, and it's like this. And I said, imagine if you're in a classroom like with a window, and you're sitting there arguing, and somebody comes up and smashes their face against the window like that. That'd probably distract you a little bit from that situation, right? You aren't here to, being an active bystander is not solving the problem. It's not fixing it for them. But it's being there in a situation and just doing a little something. Maybe just doing a little something can help. They have, different news stations have done this where they set up actors and they send them out to, and they act out domestic violence situations. Have you seen these videos? And just to see what the bystanders will do. And there was one they did in England where they were in a lift, an elevator, and these two people were arguing, and people would get on and most of the time they would get on and then they would hit the button and they would just kind of like, okay, and then they would get off really fast. Because there's a lot of fear getting involved in these situations. And I was talking to a class one time and a guy said, I would probably do the same thing, but then right as I was getting off the elevator, I'd go, stop yelling at her, and then run away. And I said, okay, but isn't that better than doing nothing? Even just doing that, you feel like you're not doing anything. You feel like, oh, I'm so stupid, I'm just going to yell at him and run away. That's better than doing nothing, right? I mean, why do you think people don't get involved in situations?
Because you never know what type of person that you're dealing with. You don't know.
Right. Especially if it's a stranger. You know, if there's a stranger they're arguing, you don't know if that person's going to turn around and do something to you. There is that fear.
We're always taught to mind our own business.
Right.
It's not your problem, stay out of it.
Yeah. You may think, hey, that's not my business. I don't need to be involved in that. We're taught those things. Maybe we're thinking, hey, there's other people around. Somebody else will take care of it. Somebody else is going to call 911. Somebody else is going to call campus police. They'll take care of it. Maybe you're with your friends and you're worried about what your friends are going to think if you say something. Maybe you're afraid of embarrassing yourself. You go in and rush in and go, oh, what is going on here? And they're like, what? Nothing. You know. You're afraid of the reaction of the people. You're afraid of the reaction of the friends. There is that fear. There is that thought that somebody else is going to take care of it, and that stops a lot of us from doing things. I know I've been in situations where I could have done something. I could have just something, but I didn't because I was afraid. And there's nothing wrong with that. But when you know ways that you can handle those situations, that maybe you could do a little something that could distract or that could adjust that situation just enough. Like I said, you're not going to fix their relationship by stepping in and saying, stop it. You know, that's not good. They're not going to be like, oh, you're right. Okay, we're fine now. But just being in that situation could make a difference. One of the situations that they gave us was, what if you were in a bathroom, like a bathroom stall in the mall, and you hear a caregiver of a child in the next stall calling that child worthless. You're worthless. You're stupid. What could you do in that situation? What would be something that if you did one of those three things, what is something that you could do?
I'm an active person.
You're an active person, so you would be like, hey, stop it.
Don't talk to your kid like that, right?
Okay. So you would directly address the situation. I tend to be kind of goofy, and so I tend to do the distracting thing. So my first thought was, I would just start singing, like just singing really loudly. Just, I'm in a bathroom and I'm singing. Think about it. If you heard that in the next bathroom stall, you'd probably stop what you were doing and you walk out of that bathroom instead of going, that child thinking that things about what that person was saying to them. They think, there's a crazy lady in this bathroom. And I was talking to another class about that, and one of the guys goes, I'd stick my face at the corner and go, you're not worthless. And I was like, okay, you got to remember this is a bathroom stall. You can't be creepy. Like, you gotta remember that line there. Don't make it creepier than it already is. But a way to safely get involved in those situations. And we can all do something. We can all do a little bit of something. A little bit about SAFE. Some of the services we offer, we are Domestic Violence Shelter and Sexual Assault Crisis Center. We have, and I've got some brochures up here if y'all are interested in any of these kind of things. A brochure about us. There is a brochure about sexual assault, what you can do. This kind of talks about what sexual assault is. Like I said, sexual assault's not about sex. It's not, oh, it's so hot. It's about power and control. It talks about those kind of things, some statistics. It talks about what you can do if someone you know is sexually assaulted. It's something you can do if you're sexually assaulted. It also tells you some warning signs to look for in a dangerous person. Very domineering personality, somebody that doesn't really care about what you want. They only cares about what they want, those kind of things. It's got some tips. It also has some safety tips on here about locking doors and locking car doors and, not walking around in Walmart parking lot in the middle of the night talking on the phone and, things like that. Do y'all do that? Try to carry all your bags at one time out of Walmart so you don't. This one talks about a personal safety plan, setting a personal safety plan. If you are in a situation of violence, in a relationship of violence, what can you do to get out of that situation? It talks about getting prepared to leave, gathering the things that you need, maybe having a signal with a neighbor or somebody that lives near you so that you could turn on a porch light or turn the porch light off or flashing it or doing something. I mean, it's not like people stand out and stare at their front porch, but, something to let somebody know that, hey, maybe I need to call 911, those kind of things. But this is helping you to get out of a situation. But those are up here for if anybody would like any of that information. We have a counselor that works with victims who are in the shelter, as well as what we call non-resident clients, which are people that don't need to come into the shelter, but they just want counseling for sexual assault situations or for domestic violence situations. We have a social worker that works with victims that are in the shelter to set up what we call a case plan, which is their goals while they're in the shelter. Find a job, find housing, go move in with their mom, buy a car, whatever it is that they need to do. We help them work toward those goals, and they set those goals. Because a lot of times they come in, they don't have goals set. They've never been allowed to have goals set. They've never aspired to anything because they never thought they were going to go any further than that situation that they were in. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to let them know that you can be independent. You can get out of this situation. You can make it on your own. We take donations of clothing, furniture, cell phones, all of those kind of things so that we have people that come to us and they don't have shoes on because they got out as quick as they could in the time that they had. We've got people that donate those things so that we can give you shoes and clothes. And the cell phones you can use to call 911, or we send them to a company that sends us money for them, like a donation, those kind of things. We take donations of furniture because once people move out, they didn't come to us dragging their couch behind them, so we're able to give them some stuff to go into an apartment. We can't furnish an entire apartment, but we can do things so that they can have a bed and some dishes and a shower curtain and some of the basic things. We have daycare for victims that are in the shelter. We transport kids to and from school. We have tutoring for the kids. We have support groups Thursday nights. We have a domestic violence support group. The counselor works with the adults. I work with school-age kids. We talk about things like bullying and anger management and conflict resolution and all of those kind of fun things. Internet safety, just all different kinds of stuff that kids deal with. We have a cook that cooks for the people in the shelter. She fried up a great big thing of fried chicken yesterday. It's pretty nice. She's good at what she does. So we have all of these things, and what I do is I go out to different places and I speak. I talk about these things. I try to educate people about these situations because a lot of times people don't realize that some of these issues are issues. They don't realize that somebody that's constantly jealous and wanting to know where you are and checking your phone all the time, that's a warning sign. I was speaking to a class one time, and a girl said, well, jealousy is a good thing because that means that he loves you and he doesn't want you to be with anybody else. And I said, well, that's kind of half right. He doesn't want you to be with anybody else. But jealousy is fear. Jealousy is, I'm afraid that I'm going to lose you. I'm not good enough to keep you. So I got to hold on to you really tight so that you don't get away. That's not a healthy relationship, you know. So you have to see if these, again, what makes you comfortable may not make me comfortable, and vice versa. You have to figure out what those boundaries are for yourself, what you are looking for in a relationship, what you're going to allow from other people in relationships with you, and don't compromise that. That's really important. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Nothing? Okay.
I'm going to start off with a little history about how the violence against women got to the point it is today. Back in April of 1986, a young 19-year-old young lady was in her dorm room in Lee University, and this guy broke into her dorm room, raped and murdered her. After this happened, her parents got to looking and researching, and up until that time, institutions of higher learning was not required to report the crimes that was happening on their campuses. So they started lobbying Congress, and in August of 1991, what's called the Clery Act went into effect. That requires all colleges that receive federal funds to report their crimes to the U.S. Department of Education and the Department of Justice each year. And there's websites out there that you can go and look at every college in the country and see what kind of crimes they report. Well, they started out with your major crimes like murder, manslaughter, rape, arson, and there was aggravated assaults. Over the years, they've started adding to that, and last year, the Congress passed what is known as the Violence Against Women Reauthorization Act. It went into effect last November, I think it was. And they're requiring institutions of higher learning to also now report on domestic violence, sexual harassments, and domestic and dating violence. All of these are laws that you can be prosecuted in criminal court. But they're also, now the colleges has to deal with this institutionally if the victim wants them to. And that was one reason for this law, is to make colleges more transparent, where students can see what's going on. I just want to touch on one that she didn't mention, which she probably don't have too much dealing with, is sexual harassment. The Department of Justice's definition for sexual harassment is an unwelcome conduct of a sexual nature. Notice the word unwelcomed. It's very important in this definition. You might think it's funny, but the person you're talking to might take it the wrong way and not think it's funny. And that's sexual harassment. It includes unwelcome sexual advances, requests for sexual favors, verbal and nonverbal physical contact of sexual nature. So, in other words, when you're telling jokes or something, or sending jokes, or putting jokes on Facebook or whatever, be careful, because somebody could take it the wrong way, and it's a very serious matter when it gets up to Dr. Collins' office. But by federal law, we have to deal with it. Abuser excuses. You ever heard anybody say, "I was just joking," or "I was just having a bad day," or "you got me upset"? But that goes two ways. There's victims' excuses too. "It was my fault, I got him mad. He apologized, promised it wouldn't happen again." I have been in law enforcement for 30 years. And 9 out of 10 times, if it happens one time, it's gonna happen again if you don't get out of the situation. I started my career out in Boonville Police Department. I was there about 10 years. And on weekends, it wouldn't, if you was gonna get a call to a certain residence because of domestic violence, it was just when you was gonna get it. Because we're the same ones time after time after time. And after studies and studies, people that stay in these situations and have children, the children's more likely than not going to be in the same situation when they get married and have kids of their own or whatever. But some of the changes that you'll be seeing in the very near future here on campus is one thing the Reauthorization Act did, and I hope none of you feel that campus police is not sensitive to this matter, but you can tell any employee of Etowah Community College about any kind of violence that's you've been subject to or whatever, and by law they have to report it to us. Then we try to work out something where we can talk to the victim and try to get to the bottom of it, but not in all cases. If the victim don't want to prosecute or have the institution to do anything about it, then we let them deal with it the best they can. We do all we can, but sometimes the victims just won't come forward. One other thing that we're doing, we had our first meeting on it today. We hope to have it online by July 1. You'll have a complete Violence Against Women website on the college's website. It'll have links to different agencies like Safe Incorporated, No Means No, You're Not Alone, all these websites where you can get information to help if anything ever happens to you. We're planning on this fall starting some classes on the bystander intervention. Thanks to Dr. Brad Boggs, we have permission from Virginia Tech University to use their what's called a playbook on bystander intervention, and we'll be teaching some classes on that. And that's basically about all I have tonight. I just wanted to touch base with you and let you know how the college stands on this. From a personal note, I will tell you, I am very serious about the Violence Against Women Act. I have 3 daughters and 1 granddaughter. I'm not trying to push the guys aside, but females, I'm gonna help them any way I can when it comes to anything like this. Some of the things that I saw in the last 30 years is not pretty. And your safety is my main concern on this campus. Like I said, if campus police can ever help you, we're there. If you don't know where my office is at, it's upstairs in the student activity building. My door's always open, so if I can ever help you, please feel free to come by.